What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be making another sensitivity guide just because quite a few people in my comments have been asking for another how to find your perfect sensitivity video. So if you guys don't need this video, you can just click out. But otherwise, I'm going to be kind of combining all of the things I've said in my previous videos into one, and hopefully this makes it a little more useful for people that are just coming into my channel or just finding my videos. And so basically, we'll go ahead and get started. Finding your sensitivity, there's many ways that people claim you can do it. For me, this is my sensitivity right now. I don't know if I would say it's my perfect sensitivity, but it's pretty close to my perfect sensitivity. It's a lower sensitivity, which is generally what a lot of people would say is ideal, and I kind of would agree. I come from a higher sense, so if you guys have any questions about going from high to low sense, I can answer those. But getting started with how to find your perfect sense, just right now, whatever your sensitivity is, it's fine. You can just keep it at that. You don't have to change it right now. What we're going to do is come into the range here, and basically we're going to ask ourselves one question to start, and it's, can you accurately track and flick with your sensitivity? So if we're in the range here, just place your crosshair here and see if you can shoot them without, like, if you're flicking, this is the flicking part, so if you can flick to their heads, and you're at least, like, kind of near their heads, and you're not, like, significantly over or undershooting. Over or undershooting is when you, like, if you're trying to flick to this bot, say, and you flick over like this is an overshoot. If you're trying to flick to this bot and you go like this is an undershoot to that bot. So if you're doing significant under overshooting, then we'll talk about that in a second, but it should look something like this. You should be flicking pretty close to the bot's heads. I'm not perfect because I just woke up as well. Usually my normal excuse. So this is one way we can do it. I'm gonna go ahead and remove these bots here. So now we're looking at tracking. So flicking, right? That's one. You can call that one measurement of how perfect your sensitivity is right now. So if your sensitivity, if you're flicking really hard, or if you're under or over flicking really hard in either direction, then that means your sensitivity is probably not perfect. If you're doing pretty good, if you're flicking pretty consistently onto their heads, or at least very close to their heads, then we can go on to step 2 here, which is going to be tracking. So tracking is something that isn't super important in Valorant, but in some scenarios, especially if you have, like, if you're doing like a trigger discipline play where you have patience and all the enemies walk in, you're gonna want to be able to track people's heads. And the way we can test this is just with the same bots here, and just basically just gonna try to keep our crosshair on their head. If we can keep our crosshair on their head for the entire time we're moving around, it's actually very hard to do. It's very hard to keep your crosshair on their head for the entire time, but if you can keep it on for like 70% or more of the time, then I'd say that's about how I'm doing right now, is like around 70%. Lower sensitivity. So if you have a lower sensitivity, you're gonna be struggling to, if you have too low of a sensitivity, it's gonna look something like this, right? Because, get out of the way, man. Get out of the way. Basically, you're gonna be going too slow, and if you have too high of a sensitivity, it's gonna look like this. You're gonna be over adjusting, right? Because you're going too fast, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. But if your sensitivity is too slow, it'll look like this. If your sensitivity is too fast, it'll look like this. If that makes sense. But the whole goal here is to see what your sense is, if you can track this accurately on their head. And if you can, that's very good. I feel like I'm being blocked here. So that's the first step, right? Is doing those. And if both these are really hard for you, then your sensitivity is probably needs to be tweaked. So if we need to change our sensitivity, so if I say my sensitivity is too high, I would probably change it down to, from this sensitivity, I would probably go to, well, depending on how, it depends on how, like, how bad these things are for you. So if you're like, if you're like flicking like crazy and you're going too high, then you probably want to raise or drop it by a significant amount, which in this case would be to 0.3. And then in which case it'd probably be easier for me to hit flicks instead of overshooting. And if your sense is too low, it should probably raise it slowly. Be more cautious in raising it than you are in lowering it. But also just try to lower it and lower and raise it in small amounts. It's better, it's more optimal. And just keep doing these practices until you feel like you have a sense that is really suited for you, your perfect sensitivity. So next, we are going to talk about spraying, because this is something that not many people actually talk about, and spraying is actually a pretty important aspect of the game, right? Like, if you're not spraying, then that's fine, I guess, but most people are going to be spraying. So whenever we spray, this is another way we can test our sensitivity. If you're spraying and your sensitivity is too high, you're going to be pulling down really hard, probably. So this is what it's going to look like. You're going to be pulling down too fast, right? And like, say I'm shooting this guy, I'll be pulling down too fast because my sensitivity is too high. It's too sensitive. It's too sensitive, right? So that's what it would look like. This is not good, because you want to be spraying in one concise, defined area like this, like that. You don't want to be doing that. And if your sensitivity is too slow, then you're going to be pulling down too slow. It's not sensitive enough, meaning it'll look like this. Right, you'll be going up instead of going down because you're not pulling down enough. And again, a perfect sense would, or not, somewhere toward a perfect sense would look something like this. I'm not gonna claim my spray is perfect because it's definitely not, but you get the idea. Something like that. That's what you want. So if you can't do that with your current sensitivity, then if you're going down too much, that means your sense is probably a little bit too high. If you're going like this, then your sense is probably a little bit too low. So depending on which one of those might be you might tweak it up or down just slightly. Remember, incrementally want to change it. You don't want to go crazy. You don't want to change it by like 0.1. Some people will say you should do that, but that's a different method. And the method that we're doing here, you want to change it just slightly. And we're inching toward our perfect sensitivity. That is the goal. And so another way you can practice your spray is over here. So if you're spraying and like you're going up like this, like say hit the first shot and then you go up. This is kind of bad because they only have two hit. You don't have to shoot them twice to kill them. You can use these guys though out here to practice your flicking and spray transferring. So if you just fix your spray in there, you think you fixed it, you can practice spraying in here. So if you think your spray potential is better now, you should be able to spray transfer easily between these two guys and probably between these as well. So this is what it'll look like as I whiff. So these guys are a little bit harder to do, but should be still pretty doable. You can also transfer from one of these guys to one of these guys, or one of these guys to one of these guys, if that makes sense. One of these guys. So yeah, basically the most important part, and the part I think a lot of you guys are confused about, is the changing your sensitivity part. Changing your sensitivity, I have a video about this as well, is not good. But if your sensitivity is too high or too low, obviously you want to get it out of that like area, right? If your sensitivity is too high, you obviously want to try to lower it a little bit to see where your perfect sensitivity is. If you think you're at your perfect sensitivity, then don't change your sensitivity. You don't need to. It's not necessary. You're probably just in a slump. You probably had a bad game. Don't blame a bad game on your sensitivity. It's not worth it. It's just gonna make things harder. I've been there. I've done that. I think we all have. If we've been playing for a while, it's not worth it. If you can come into the range and you pass these tests pretty well, then your sensitivity is most likely not the problem. Your problem is probably somewhere else, and also changing your sensitivity might be a problem. But focus on take this chance whenever you have a bad game. Don't blame it on, instead of blaming it on your sensitivity, blame it on something else, or just chalk it up to having a bad game, and that's fine. It's okay to have bad games. So if you guys enjoyed, if you guys have any questions about sensitivity at all, just let me know, and I will be more than happy to answer them in the comments. But otherwise, stay sexy. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.